Good morning. It is Sunday, May the 17th. My baby girl Charlotte was born on this day 19 years ago, so I want to say happy birthday to Charlotte, and glad that you've joined us via video today. We'll say more about that later. I want to start with a song and a little mini sermon here to begin with, and then I want to have some prayer requests and announcements, and then we'll go right into a message. And I'm glad that you are able to still hear from God during these times. The song I want to sing has a phrase in it about feelings. And I grew up in churches, in churches where they shied away from the idea of feelings because they rightfully said our salvation is not based on feelings. I understand that. But I also know that God gave us emotions. And I would like to say this. I know that our salvation is not based on emotion, but if your salvation experience didn't cause emotion, you might want to get that checked out. How can you not be emotional about the fact that the God of the universe sent his only son to die for yours and my sins? And that ought to cause you to be emotional. Anyway, like a song like Redemption Draweth Nigh. In the chorus says, signs of the times are everywhere, and there's a brand new feeling in the air. Okay, that's the song, right? Well, I've been at churches where we had to change that because you can't have new feelings. I think that's ridiculous. So this song talks about feeling like something good's going to happen. This is a Gaither song that was written in 1974. And you think about the things that were going on in 1974. Because of the energy crisis, daylight savings time was moved to January that year, 4 months ahead of time from what was normal. Patty Hearst was kidnapped early in the year of 74. Then you had, of course, the oil embargo and the crisis there. Cars lining up to get gas and all the energy crisis we had going on with that. And then in April, there was a super outbreak of tornadoes, the second largest in the country at that time. And they called it the super outbreak. And it was just, it just seemed like for the first 4 months, it's just bad news after bad news after bad news. Of course, by the time August rolled around, the Watergate scandal would turn into the Watergate hearings, which would then lead to Nixon resignation in August, and then of course, Ford becoming president, and then Ford, pardoning them, and just all the turmoil that was going on at that time. And so they wrote this song, and when you get to the last verse, and you see what's in the last verse of this song, you think about today, and I want you to think about that when I get down to the last verse. But I want you to know this. This song is not about feelings as far as salvation is concerned and anything like that, and like basing anything on emotions. It's talking about the fact that God gave us promises in his word, and we need to rely on them and feel like something good's going to happen regardless of what's going on in the world around us. I just feel like something good is about to happen. I just feel like something good is on its way. He has promised that he'd open all of heaven. And brother, it could happen any day. When God's people humble themselves and call on Jesus, and they look to heaven expecting as they pray. I just feel like something good is about to happen. And brother, this could be that very day. I have learned in all that happens just to praise him, for I know he's working all things for my good. Every tear I shed is worth all the investment, for I know he'll see me through. He said he would. He has promised, I nor ear can hardly fathom, all the things he has in store for those who pray. And I just feel like something good is about to happen. And brother, this could be that very day. Yes, I've noticed all the bad news in the paper, and it seems that things get bleaker every day. But for this child of God, it really doesn't matter, for it's bound to get much better either way. I have never been more thrilled about tomorrow. Sunshine's always bursting through the skies of gray. And I just feel like something good is about to happen. And brother, this could be, brother, this could be, brother, this could be that very day. All right, get your pencil and paper handy, because we're going to do some prayer requests. I talked to Bill today for almost an hour on the phone, and we talked about how long this prayer list is getting. And so I hope that you are able to remember all of these and write these down. Let me go through these. Ask you to pray for Bob and Mary Shaw. Miss Mary spent a better part of this week in the hospital here in town. Some of her meds caused her glucose and blood sugar levels to be off, and so they took care of that. And then they also are helping her with some issues of rehab and getting around better. And so I ask you to remember to pray for Miss Mary and pray for them. They still have no set time as to when they were going to do her surgery, so I ask you to remember them in prayer. I talked to Billy today. I talked to Donna and Billy, and they have met with the oncologist this week. Donna's going to have 33 doses of radiation. They're going to do that Monday through Friday. She's going to be able to do it in Altus, but think about that. That's 7 weeks of radiation, followed by 6 rounds of chemo. And I talked to Billy today, and he said that Donna's handling things better than he is. I only say that to say to you, we need to pray for both of them, for Billy and Donna Robbins, and pray for Donna's health in this situation. Ask you to remember the Smith family in prayer. I mentioned to you Kelly, and Kelly ended up having 5 bypass surgery, but Kelly's home and doing pretty well, and thankful for that. And the surgery apparently went well. But Kelly's brother, and this would be another of Brent's uncles, Billy, is not doing well, and I ask you to pray for their family. They went up to have a procedure done on Thursday, and as they were leaving, he collapsed in the parking lot. They thought that maybe it was a stroke or a seizure, but found out that it was a massive heart attack. And they have to make a decision Monday on what to do as a family, because Billy's on a ventilator, and they really need our prayers. And so ask you to pray for their family. Ask you to remember in prayer Kim Smith's dad, Doug. Pray for Doug Henson. I ask that you remember him in prayer. He has also been in the hospital this week. He had some blood loss, and they had to give him some blood and give him some fluids, and he was really dehydrated, been sick, and Doug's just not doing well at all. And so I pray that I ask that you'd pray that Doug would get his strength, and that the doctors would know exactly how to help him. Ask you to remember Doug in prayer. Talked to Bill, like I said, for quite a while. Bill has surgery. He has his cancer surgery on the 28th. He's concerned about that. And he's also concerned, they told him he had to have a COVID test before the surgery, and he's concerned about that. But ask that you would remember Bill in prayer, and remember him and Sandy and the family as they deal with this. Bill told me, he said, man, I feel so good right now. And so ask you to continue to pray for him, that that's still the case as we lead up to the 28th date. And ask you to remember that the doctors and his surgery. Scotty Jones is going to the oncologist the same day on the 28th, and I ask you to pray for him and what they're going to tell him. I have dear friends in Iowa, John and Amanda Ware, and Amanda's going to have a procedure done on that day also, the 28th. And so I ask you to remember them in prayer. They're very close to me. They treat me like family. I love them both, and just ask you to remember them in prayer as Amanda has this done on the 28th also. Ask you to remember Phyllis and her continued health. I know Clyde told me that they have an appointment scheduled for June, so ask you to remember Phyllis as they lead up to that. Thank you for praying for Christina. I ask you to continue to do so there. She's getting stronger and she's doing better. Her hair had started to come back, and so she's seeing that, and that's a little bit of excitement. But I ask you to remember her in prayer and her continued recovery. Pray for Evelyn Golden, that you remember her and her kidney issues and health and her levels there. Ask that you'd pray that would be turn the other direction, and if need be, that the doctors would know how to help her. And then ask you to pray for my cousin. I talked to my cousin today and his wife, Mike and Kathy Carroll. And Kathy also has been going through radiation treatments, and they're just really struggling. They've just finished the treatments, and they have to wait for a while before they can have a scan, and they're going to have that soon. So pray about the results of that scan, and pray for them and as they're going through this also. And it is a tough thing, and to have to deal with that, and ask you to remember all of those things that I mentioned to you in prayer. I want to say to you, I thank you for your support this week. I thank you for your understanding on this decision. I promise you that I'm okay. I'm not stressed out to the point that pulling my hair out. It's just knowing what to do for everyone and the best thing for everyone, and to try to be safe. And also knowing that I'd like to come together as a whole church, as opposed to just 15 or 20 of us bouncing around in here. I'd like to be where it's safe for everyone to be here. And so I appreciate that. Just about everyone were very positive in the texts and the calls that you gave me, and I greatly appreciate it. I want you to know that, and thank you for that. And so I want to make that announcement. Then I want to say congratulations to our seniors, and especially to the Banks family and to Chloe. I went to Chloe's graduation in Cordell Monday, and Chloe was valedictorian of Cordell's class of 2020, and oh yeah, that's great. And I say congratulations to Chloe, and I was glad I was able to go and to be there for that. And ask you to remember all our graduates as they make plans for the future, not knowing what they might be, kind of up in the air because of the world situation. But congratulations to you, Chloe, and congratulations on everything you received that night, and I hope that is life-changing for you, and I hope that just paves the way for you to not worry about things, and to be able to just concentrate on what you're supposed to do. She says she wants to be a teacher, so pray for Chloe, that she gets clear leading. That's definitely what she's supposed to do, but if it is, pray for her as she prepares for that. And thank you to the Banks family for welcoming me. And thank you for that and for their friendship. And I'm glad I was able to be there for that. All right. So right now, that's the only announcements I have. I don't know. We just play it day by day and see what happens as far as this is concerned. But I greatly appreciate your understanding in that, and ask that you continue to pray for our church. Continue to send in your tithes and continue to support your church that way. And it is very much still needed. Somebody said to me this week, somebody said to them, what? You tithe? What? You don't have church? And I said, yeah, but we still have bills. And so I hope that you understand that and appreciate that. And we're thankful for what the Lord has provided for us, and ask that you just give as God leads you to, where that is concerned. I want to share something with you today. I want to get right into it and just share something with you that I hope will be a blessing. And I hope you will see it that way. In John chapter 9, I'm going to read to you the first 7 verses of John chapter 9. And interesting little story here. I want to read this. And here's what it says. And as he passed by, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, Master or Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Boy, what a human question. What a human question that they asked. And they said, hey, where does the sin lie here, Jesus? Because, the poor little boy was born blind, so surely someone did something wrong. And Jesus answered and said, it was not that this man sinned nor his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. Jesus very, very plainly said the reason he's born this way was for today. So when you see what happens, you will be able to glorify God. That's why. And he says, we must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no man can work. As long as I'm in the world, I'm the light of the world. Then having said these things, he spat on the ground and made mud with the saliva. I think the King James said he made clay with the spittle. Here's what I want to say to you before I keep reading. We all know that the loss of one sense, what happens in the human body many times is that the other senses compensate for that lost sense. So I'm sure this man could hear very well. The Bible doesn't tell us that. We assume that he could hear well. And I'm sure that Jesus didn't, in wrong terms, hock a loogie when he spit. But I'm sure that the man heard something. And he heard him spit on the ground. And then he heard him mixing up the dirt, mixing it up in his hand. And what is going on here? What is he about to do? The Bible says, then he anointed the man's eyes with the mud. And he said to him, go wash in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. So he went and washed. I like it says, and he came back seeing. We wonder what he was thinking. We wonder when he heard that, and then he felt that mud go over his eyes and in his face. We wonder what he was thinking. You know, there's probably a lot of people, maybe some of you sitting here watching this, who would say, oh, he made mud out of his spit and then he rubbed it on his face. Maybe I'd just stay blind. And I'm sure there's some others of you out there that would say, let me tell you, if having this spit mud in my face will allow me to see, then bring it on. Bobby, I don't know if you get to listen to these or not, but I'm sure you would say that. You'd say, man, if that's what it takes, I'll go for it. But there'll probably be some that say, ooh, I don't know. And you got to think that man, when it happened, he'd be, whoa, what's going on here? You see, maybe the argument was whether or not the cure should be worse than the disease. See, we've heard a lot about that lately, having to do with what's going on in this world. And we've been told that the cure can't be worse than the disease, and therefore we all need to go back to work because we've got to get the economy going. We got to get this economy restarted. The cure of us losing the American way of life can't be worse than the disease. And I want to say to you, to me, excuse me for a moment, to me that's faulty logic. To me, that's wrongful thinking, that the cure can't be worse than the disease. Sometimes the disease is so bad that the cure has to be that much stronger than the disease to get rid of it. And sometimes it has to be worse. I've thought about some things. I called, well, he said I could tell you, but I called a former alcoholic this week. And I said, hey man, I need to talk to you today as good old alcoholic. And he said, okay. He kind of laughed. He said, okay. And I said, unless you were bad old alcoholic. He said, no, I was always a good one. I said, okay. I said, let me ask you something. When you got to that point, when you realized you had to do something, when you got to that point, and he said, you mean when I hit bottom? I said, yeah. When you got to that point, when there was no lower you could go and you knew you had to change something, and so you started down that process of whatever that change was, the classes, the program, the going to church, whatever it was, that process that you started down, I said, at least for a little while, you didn't want to do that, did you? And he said, no way. He said there were 5 years there where he struggled with that, where he struggled with the cure. But he finally came to the place where he realized that the cure and whatever he had to go through to get there, whatever withdrawals that he had to go through, he was willing to. And let me say this, he was very plain. I said, you know, when you're going through those withdrawals, wasn't that worse than the drinking part? And he said, well, unfortunately, yes. But you see, it had to be in order to turn his life around. It had to be. I think about things that, are not even that pressing. I'm thinking about a coach. If a coach has got a kid playing and he is the fan favorite, but he's got another kid on the bench who might be better, oh, that's a tough decision. That's a hard thing, especially in small communities like this. And you have to make that decision. You have to say, oh, and I got to change this player out for this one. And everybody in the town's going to be upset. And his parents are going to be upset. But it's what I need to do for the good of the team. See, sometimes the cure might be worse than the problem. I told you I talked to Bill for an hour today. I talked to my cousin Mike for quite a while. I talked to Billy and Donna. I talked to Bob this week, and I know from my wife's experience. Chemo and radiation is not a pretty thing. Cancer surgery is not a pretty thing. It's very, very poisonous to your body. It has a lot of deleterious effects to your body. But it has to. Because it has to be stronger and more powerful than the disease to get rid of the disease. And we are willing to go through that to get to the good. I told you about my wife's hair starting to grow back. It's exciting. It's exciting to see that. And it's exciting to see that maybe that part's behind you. But you had to go through some rough stuff to get there. We've heard that a lot today. The cure can't be worse than the disease. We can't go broke as a nation because of coronavirus. Well, listen, I'm not advocating that we declare bankruptcy or that we turn to socialism or anything like that. But I am telling you that I think that nice little saying is about all it is. The cure can't be worse than the disease. We got to get our economy started back up. We got to preserve the American way of life. Let me show you some things from this week. I got my wife's phone. I want to show you some things. I'm going to bring it right up into the camera. Bear with me. Look here. Here's the first one. Okay? Hope you can read this. It says, coronavirus in Oklahoma. The fans are gone, but the betting goes on at Remington Park. And it's an article from Thursday about how they don't have any fans, but they still got betting at the park, and you can still bet on the ponies. All right, how about this one? Look, hundreds line up as some Oklahoma casinos reopen despite the virus. Oh, look, I got evidence of that. Look, I don't want to get this too close. People might recognize themselves, right? But just a joke. But look, here's another line. People lined up. Look, here's another one. People lined up for what? To go to the casino. Now, don't panic, because my message is not about gambling, so don't panic. But my message is this. There's some parts of our economy that didn't need to be restarted. And we were just fine without them. And yet we sell this idea, oh no, we must preserve the economy. It can't be worse than the disease. Let me ask you a question, and being serious. How many of you would be willing to bankrupt the country if it would cause people to get closer to God? Tough question, huh? Because we have our American way of life, and I don't want to be bankrupt. I don't either. But I want you to understand that what's going on is our priorities are misplaced. And we're putting things of lesser value above things of higher value because the cure can't be worse than the disease. I think that's faulty logic. And I think it's also true spiritually. And it's starting to affect the way we think as Christian people. Look, here's what I want you to understand. We've come to the place where we have to take care of our sensitivities in the things that we like. And we have to maintain our privileges. And they're more important than what might be necessary to change those things. You see, listen to me. Here's what I'm trying to tell you. The spiritual problem in this country is still the same spiritual problem that's always been, and that is sin. Okay? And the cure has to be stronger than the sin to do any good. And look, I'm saying that we shouldn't let the thinking of today warp our thinking, spiritually speaking. To where we say, well, if the cure is inconvenient, or if it's a little hard on my kids, or if it's something they can't, I want to shelter them from that. So if we shelter our kids from anything bad ever happening, we shelter them, are they ever going to see the need to turn to God, to turn away from their sin? Because, hey, the cure is worse than the problem. See? Look, God sent his son to die on this cross, and he was strong enough to overcome all of our problems and all of our diseases. And his shed blood was great enough to overcome all of our diseases. And I want to say something to you. You can call me any day this week and you say, listen, I got a problem and I haven't been willing to go to the cure because I was afraid that the cure would be more inconvenient for me than the problem. I was content to hang on to the problem. I didn't want to go to the cure because I knew the cure meant that I might have to go to church and I might have to see people at church and I might have to sing when I get there. Oh my goodness, I might have to read my Bible. And so therefore I didn't come and I stayed right here where I am, stuck in the way I've always lived because the cure was more to me than the problem. You see, I think that's faulty logic. I think if we truly want a cure to our life and to our family, we have to be willing to go get the cure no matter how hard it might be. Now, yes, I understand this is very easy to relate to the president and to the things going on today, but I didn't come here to rant and rave about the president. I came here to rant and rave about the fact that our thinking is being warped. And we are being taught and trained to think the way they want us to think. I know I sound like a conspiracy theorist right now, but I'm seriously telling you something. How does the Bible tell us that we're supposed to transform? Be ye not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the, what's it say? Renewing of your mind. Look, we are thinking exactly the way they want us to. Yeah. We've gone down this road and we think exactly the way they want us to think. And now we've bought this hook, line, and sinker. Hey, we've got to preserve the American way of life. I'm willing to if I have to die so my kids get a preserved way of life. Are the things that I showed you more important than the lives of people? Is standing in line to go to the casino more important? The sad thing is, if we were honest, we'd say yes, because that's what we want. And I'm saying to you that it has warped our thinking to the point where we have forgotten that what we need is the cure, and the cure is Jesus. And he died on a cross for all of your diseases, and he's greater than all of them. And we need him. Sometimes the cure is greater, stronger, worse than the disease because it's necessary. It's what we need in this world today is Jesus. Father, I ask you to give us a great day today. I pray that you'd help us to think about this thought. I pray that we wouldn't think about it too much and try to relate it and say, Chris is crazy, he's a conspiracy theorist. No, I'm trying to get you to understand that sometimes what's necessary is to go through some tough times to get to the good. And what's necessary is to go through what God has planned in your life to receive the blessings on the other side. Sometimes the cure is tough to go through, but it's better because the disease is gone on the other side. I want to say this to you again. If anybody watches this and say, I want to know what he's talking about curing the sin in my life, then you call me. You call me this week and ask me. We'll talk about it. Lord, I pray that you bless all those things on our prayer list. I pray, Lord, you bless each and every person that I listed. And Lord, I pray that you'd help us as a church to band together at this time like never before. That we'd come together and we would pray for one another and not be critical of decisions, of things that we have done and haven't done, but that we would be a family together that supports one another and we would then pray for one another. And I thank you for it. Lord, I ask all of these things in your name. Amen. I'm looking at the clock. I got to quit. Okay? But I want to say to you, God bless you.